Alright guys, what is up? Today we are going to be replacing the fuel pump in the Z, as well as upgrading the fuel lines to stainless steel braided lines so that we can handle all that fuel pressure and be completely set for the future to come when we're modding this car. Now if you can't tell, I have the tank out. I've already dropped it. I've made a video on that. Go ahead and check it out if you want. It should be linked right up here in the top corner. Now what we're going to go ahead and do right now, we're going to pull this fuel pump assembly out and we're going to go ahead and cut some holes in it because our new AN fittings are a little bit bigger than what we have on there. So the plan is we're going to use some of these adapters. So these have little washers in between. We're going to cut some holes in the top of our in our housing right now. I'll put these guys through. It's got AN on top and barb on the bottom. The barb is going to go to the fuel pump. The AN is going to go into this, which we have our stainless steel for. We're going to run the stainless steel all the way to the front, fuel filter into the fuel rail, and then we have an adapter fitting for that as well. One of these guys right here, just a barb to AN, so no plates in between. But we're going to go into a fuel line, a standard fuel line, just because we don't have a AN fuel filter yet. That will be something in the future to get. And then we're going to go into our fuel rails, which are also standard hose, which is why we have this. And then we're going to go back to return stainless steel all the way back, and we have another one of these for the return as well. Alright guys, well I just got the fuel sending unit out, and as you can tell there's actually a couple interesting things to note here. One, this tube has been pushed down and is not even really on at all. And two, both of the hose clamps aren't even on either of the ends. Right there, you can see they were marked where it was. Somehow it got moved up there and up here. You can't really see, but it was up there as well, and it got moved down. Somehow, both of these got pushed into the middle. Honestly, that is so funny to me. This probably was the reason why we were not holding fuel pressure, because it was just leaking out either of those spots. So I think I'm still going to replace it with the Walbro. I'm still going to put in all the stainless steel. Again, just to future-proof it. Hopefully it doesn't start blowing lines off again. That's the reason why I switched back to this. So you guys know, I put a Walbro in, but it kept blowing lines off because it was so powerful. So I switched back to this guy. But that was probably our reason right there that we were losing fuel pressure. That's really weird. It still could be the pump, so that's a possibility, but these not being clamped down is definitely something that probably contributed to that. So we're going to go ahead and continue. I'm going to go ahead and undo this. This basically comes off here with these bolts. We're going to take the bottom out, take the pump out, take this off, and then what we're going to do is we're going to chop off the this is the output and this is the input. We're going to chop that off with a little wire wheel, and then let me go ahead and grab one of these guys again. We're going to go ahead and measure the hole that we need to get this to fit through, and we're going to go ahead and drill a hole in the top of this. We're going to put it again where the output and the input was. We're going to drill a hole right there. We might move it a little bit to get away from these electronics a little bit. These guys, they are not removable, so if you guys try to take these off and you break them off, you cannot get them back on. So you want to be very careful with these. You can see mine is actually bent right there. I'm not a fan of that. I believe they do swivel, but they do not pop off, so be careful when you're working with those. So we might move the input down a little bit just to get it away from those. But there you go, that's what we're going to do. That's the plan so far. It is getting really stormy outside, so I might only be able to get this done today. But unfortunately for you guys, it should all be in one video for you, because I think I'm 4 weeks ahead right now on videos, which means that even if I take 3 weeks to do this, it should come out on the next week for you guys. So there you go. I'm going to go ahead and work on this. If it starts to rain, I will go ahead and hold off until tomorrow. Alright guys, well here's the finished product, and I absolutely love how it came out. So I've got these two AN fittings on the top, and then it's kind of hard to see with the black, but I put two new electrical fittings through there. So the old harness, the old, whatever this thing was, these little dots, they had these big plastic rings on the bottom, and basically they got in the way of my new AN fittings on the bottom here. You can actually see I actually had to shave a little bit of the new one off to the side. It's supposed to be a big silver dot, but I had to make it a little bit smaller for this one. But it was in the way, and I couldn't modify the old one the way I could these new ones that I had. So I went ahead and did that. I went ahead and wired up my Walbro 255 fuel pump wires. These are probably going to be a little bit longer than we needed, because I had to make that extension right there, because I've already used this, but it's going to have to work for now. but we've got our new electrical on top as well as the AN fittings, and it looks super good. I went ahead and painted it with a black enamel. This is what bonds to metal, so I went ahead and took a wire brush. I got it all shiny and then painted it with this enamel, so it looks really good now. So pretty much all we have left to do is we're going to put the pump on the bottom here, and then we're going to drop it in the tank and then figure out wiring a little bit. I think I'm just going to use spade connectors for now, and that's going to be nice because now these fuel lines are going to be removable, and then these electrical lines are going to be removable as well. If I ever need to drop the tank, it just makes it so much easier. But I'm going to go ahead and assemble the rest of this assembly, and we will see about dropping it in the tank. Alright guys, I am happy because it came out great. We got the new fuel pump in, our Walbro 255. It is hooked up with our electric up to the top new terminals. We have our 5/16 hose in the middle. There are double clamps on each side to make sure that this hose will not come off even if the car explodes. Those will stay on there because they are the fuel injection as well, so they are rated for the high fuel pressure. That is what you're going to want to use if you do fuel pump as well. I went ahead and put another metal band around it just to hold the pump to it. We've got our output right here. It's just got a single clamp right at the top, and then it goes down and out. You could put this in the middle here, but I think it might kind of blow away too much fuel, so I'm just going to kind of let it just go with the natural curve of the hose that it has on it. So basically all we need to do now is figure out what we're going to do with the top electrodes. Like I said, I think I'm going to do spade terminals. It should be pretty easy. We just have to figure out which one is the positive, which one is the ground. On this one the black is the ground, and this one is gray if you can tell, and this one is the positive, so ground positive. One thing to note, this ground did get pretty close on the bottom to this other AN fitting, but again, it is the ground. I made sure that this one would be the ground, just in case it does ground out. The tank itself is not usually grounded that well, so I don't think anything will happen, but if it does ground, it's not like it's going to be a big problem. If it was a positive that was grounding out, that would be a problem, but if we have a ground here and it's grounding out, there's not really that big of a problem at all. Of course, you don't want any sparks, but this one, it shouldn't do anything because it is the ground. So now that I've said ground about a million times, I'm happy with this, and I'm going to go ahead and work on the wiring harness and see what we can do with that guy. Alright, so we went ahead and made up some new spade fittings on the end of our wiring harness here, and they came out looking really good with that heat shrink. So they're ready to go ahead and get connected to our two connectors there. The only thing we have to do before we get this into the tank is we got some new hose for our 5/8 fitting right here. This is the evaporation. It's just kind of like the off gases. As you're filling your tank up, gas air has to come out. So you want that to go into here, and this is what I got. This is from AutoZone here. And that just goes back up to the outside of the tank. If you go to the filler neck, that's where that hose comes from. So that's where that is. That's 5/8. You can probably get one a little bit smaller, but 5/8 seems to work pretty well. Alright guys, so here we go. We got the end red piece on. This is what I was talking about, this kind of little spline thing. And you basically just put it in there, and you just twist it on, and you tighten it all the way up. It's really simple. These things are really easy to use. One thing I will say is the brand of stainless steel line has made a difference for me. I've actually got two brands here. The first one I bought came in this kit and had these fittings with it, and it almost felt like it was a little bit thicker because when I was trying to get these on, I was really having a really hard time getting it over the lip of the stainless steel braid, and it was fraying it outside and everything, and I really was not happy with it. But this second one, I forget the brand of it, I'll probably put on the screen, but this actually, it's a little bit thinner, it seems, and so it fits over perfectly, and there's no fraying coming out the edge or like bulging. So I would definitely recommend getting a better quality line. As with anything you guys do, you want to get better quality, especially for something important like fuel. But I think the other one is going to work just as well. So we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to fit this up. I believe this is a 20 millimeter. I'm going to grab a wrench, one of the non-marring ones that I have, because I don't want to scuff this up. And then this line is all good to go in the car, and I've actually already got the feed line. This is the return line. So we're going to go ahead and mock this up. I'll take you guys through the feed line, basically what went through that, and we should be ready to start the car. Alright guys, so we have the fuel lines routed and they look amazing. So let me go ahead and go over what's up in here. So right now in the front we've got our return line coming off of our fuel regulator. Right there you can see. This is just a little rubber hose. It's about, I don't know, 5-6 inches long. And then back here it turns into the stainless steel, as you can see. So I've got an adapter right there. It's a 5/16 26AN. And you tighten that down real well. You tighten all that, and it's all good, and this just kind of follows down right where the stock one was. Now next we have our inlet. This is a stock fuel filter right here, and a new piece of fuel hose. It's double clamped on all 6 places, so underneath here there's 2, right up on here there's 2, and right here there are 2 more as well, all double clamped, because this is a high pressure hose that's coming from the tank, and we really don't want this blowing off with the new Walbro 255, because especially in the engine bay, that's the only places I have rubber lines in this setup. We really don't want fuel spraying all over our engine. It's a terrible thing to have. So I went ahead and double clamped all of these, was really careful to make sure that they're all nice and secure, because we definitely don't want anything happening. But underneath it's kind of hard to see. It kind of does little like 3 inches of rubber hose again, and then back into the 6AN. I should have a picture on the screen right now so you can see that. But then it just goes down along the frame rail, and I'll show you down there. Alright, hope you can see well enough. So right there it comes down. And I've got a bunch of zip ties, haven't clipped them yet. Basically it comes down along the frame right here, and then goes over under this. This is the catalytic converter, like kind of heat shield thing. The drive shaft is above this, and it goes behind these. I actually had to undo these 3 bolts to shove them up underneath. They wouldn't go on their own. We move down this way. They come out and continue down that way. I went ahead and secured it with zip ties. That is the e-brake right here. I zip tied it to that, so this is nice and secure. It continues down that way above the subframe. Then it's going to go back up into the fuel. Basically, I just put some zip ties every once in a while. I need to cut this one off. It's not useful. But I put zip ties so they're nice. They're together, and they won't move and get in any other way of moving parts or possible parts that could flex just a little bit, like the subframe itself. It will flex a little bit because of the bushings. You can get solid ones, but just stock wise it'll flex a little bit, and we don't want these getting in the way, so they're zip tied up and out of the way, and then they go back over to the fuel tank, and I'll go take a look at that right now. Alright, so back here we have our fuel pump and the fuel lines. This is the return. I have not put it on yet, but it will go on to the little fitting right next to the input right here. And then this is the output right now. So that is the fuel out. This is the high pressure line, and then this one is technically pressurized as well, but it just dumps straight back into the tank. So once this is tightened down, this is tightened on, you want to tighten these down as hard as you can. Be careful of the little fitting underneath. We'll try to spin as well. Hold that. We're going to tighten all these fittings down, and then we should be good to pump the tank back up. I already got the electrics in. Tighten these guys down good. And then we got this new hose I need to clamp down because the old one was absolutely trashed. This is just a vapor hose, so it's not too important, but we don't want any leaks coming from that, because that means that your gas is just blowing away. So we're going to go ahead and tighten those down, and we should be ready to put this tank back up and in, which would be so great because it is such a pain to move this tank. And we also have these that can undo themselves now a lot easier than the old hose clamps, and we got plenty of slack in here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten everything up, and we should be good to go, guys. Alright, as you can see, we have all of the hoses now hooked up. We have our feed and return. So what we're going to do before we put the tank back in, and we got to do this every time, turn your car into the on position multiple times, let the fuel pump pressurize because we've released all the fuel, and we want to hear it just kind of sit there and run for a little bit, and we want to go and check all the places that could possibly leak. So right here, if you didn't tighten down these fittings enough, they will leak, and in the engine bay as well where those lines are, we want to make sure they didn't pop off. We want to make sure they're not leaking. We're going to go ahead and double check all of our fittings, make sure nothing is leaking, because fuel leak is the worst type of leak. Alright guys, so let's go ahead and double check everything, and then we can put this tank back in. Alright, now before we put the tank in, I want to go ahead, and we've already checked for leaks, and nothing is leaking, and it is great. None of the lines have been popping off. I ran for about a minute, was doing absolutely perfect. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to go ahead and turn the car on. And guys, the reason we did this mod is because we had low fuel pressure. And so if we get this car to start without having to crank over, and it runs without a misfire, and we go and get it emissions tested tomorrow, and it does not have a lean condition, then that means that the Z is officially fixed. So let's go ahead and turn it on and see what it sounds like. Remember, we don't want it to crank over for a very long time. Alright, key in the ignition. Fuel pump on. Alright, started up pretty easily. Let's watch those RPMs. Alright, it's jumping a little bit, but I do not hear a misfire. Alright, and it likes to drop down a little bit and idle lower once it gets going, so it's good. Alright guys, well our RPMs seem to be a little bit sporadic, but where there's no misfire, and it is not dying on us. It also started up really quickly. So this I will consider a win, and what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to take it and get emissions tested tomorrow. I'll take you guys along with me as well. That'll probably be in the next video, but it won't come out in a week. I think it'll come out tomorrow as well for you guys. But there you go guys, I'm super stoked. I'm going to go ahead and put this tank back up and in. Just go ahead and check out my video, how to remove and clean your fuel tank, to go ahead and figure out the process of that if you hadn't figured it out on your own by taking it out. Alright, there you go guys, I'm super excited and so happy. Alright, I'll see you guys later. Alright guys, just a quick heads up from me installing the tank at the end of the video. You will need to cut a hole just because these new elbows are a little bit taller, so that is just a heads up. If you're planning on doing this, you will need to go ahead and cut a hole in your trunk, or find elbows that come out of the top of the tank that are perfectly flat, just like the original ones, and not raised up as such as these. Alright guys, so before I let you go, I did want to let you know, I put a thing at the beginning of the video, but we did have to cut a hole for this, something that I did not plan on doing initially. So what I had to do is I kind of roughly estimated what I needed to do. I cut a few holes, and then I used a saw like this, just to kind of lightly cut a rough shape out of here. As you can see, I didn't need to go as far down as I thought, or to the side, but I probably should have made this a little bit further out as well, just for the hoses to flex. Like I said at the beginning of the video, if you can find some elbows, and I'm going to do some research as well, something that doesn't go up quite as high, because this is probably about 2.5, maybe 3 inches higher from the top of the tank, whereas the stock only came up to about maybe 1 inch off the top of the tank. So the other ones were able to lie flat on the tank, and these ones have to go up. So I did have to cut a hole in the top for this. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try 3D printing like a little bracket to put up here. If I get something cut out that I think will work fine, I'll go ahead and put it on the zgarage.net as well. Just kind of like a little template for you guys to buy, as well as a little kind of cover to go on top of this. But there you go guys. If you have any other questions about what I've done, or I'm going to try to post an update to this eventually with the cover and everything, I'll let you guys know about that. But basically I got this taken care of. I'm going to go ahead and finish up a few things on the car, drop it down, and then I'm going to see if I can get it emissions tested today, but it is a little bit late, so we will see on that. But other than that guys, I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you later.